Okay, hi guys. This is the third video you're going to watch on genetics. So you've done monohybrids, our normal example where you have a dominant trait and a recessive trait. You've done sex-linked where the genes are located on that X chromosome. And now we're going to get into a couple more cases of special genetics. These are really simple. The first one's going to be super short, and then you're going to practice, and then you're going to come back to in one more video and do the second, the other kind, of the special genetics, which will be a teeny tiny bit longer because there are two things that we have to discuss in that particular one. So we are going to start. This is just, again, what you will be able to do by the end, so don't worry about that. Okay, so what we have seen before, we've seen for genes relationships where one trait is totally dominant over another trait. So in this example, big A, being the dominant gene, totally masks or covers up little a. So you'd have to inherit two copies of that little a gene, that recessive allele, in order to show that trait. So organisms that have the genotype big A, or homozygous dominance, look exactly the same as organisms that are heterozygous for the gene big A, little a. So that's all we've seen so far. So what we're going to get into is a little bit different than that. So again, this is just reiterating what we just said. So we've seen one allele being dominant over another, these two guys having the same phenotype. So let's say flower color of snapdragons, right? So you can be, the snapdragon could be big R, big R. It could be big R, and little r. So both of these would be red, and then only when you inherit two copies of that recessive gene would it be white. But this is a new kind of genetics, and it's something called incomplete dominance. And our saying for this is going to be incomplete is in between. And I like to think of this almost like mixing paint colors. So if I took red paints and white paint and mix them together, I would have pink paint. I would have something that was in between red and white. And that's pretty much what's going to be happening here. So the heterozygotes, organisms that inherit two different copies of this gene, have an intermediate or a blended phenotype. So it's somewhere in between the two extreme versions. And it'd be a mixture of what we would normally think of as the dominant and recessive phenotype. And we're going to mark our alleles a little bit differently. So in this case, we're going to use different letters, and we have not done that yet so far. So we did like big R, big A, big T, little t. In this case, we're not going to use the same letters. We're going to use two different letters. So we're going to use, for red, the allele for red will be designated big R, and the allele for white would be designated big W. So if an organism inherits two red alleles, it would be red. If an organism inherits two white alleles, it would be white. And this is where it's different. If you're a heterozygote, you have two different alleles for the trait, your RW, you're going to be pink. And say, like, this could be another example with flower color, because flowers do this all the time. So we would get these pink flowers. So we'd have this in-between, or this blended phenotype. So, and here's our little example. So we have our red and our white, and then all they would produce is pink flowers, because of, if you're red, you have to be big R. If you're white, you have to be W. And if we know if we blend those, all the offspring are going to be RW. They're all going to be pink. So I want you to do a square where you cross a red flower and a pink flower. And then you're going to answer the question, what is the probability that you will get a pink offspring, and what's the probability or the percentage of offspring that will be white? So take a minute, do the Punnett square, and then come check your work. Okay, so we start by setting up our parents just like normal. So again, just like before, it doesn't matter which parent you put. across the top and which parent you put across the side. So we have our red flower, RR, going down the side, and our pink flower, RW, going across the top. And if we do our Punnett square like we normally would, here are the offspring. So take a minute, check it against yours. Hopefully that's what you got. And let's answer the question. What is the probability you'll get a pink offspring? To remember, to be pink, you are RW. And if you got what I got, then 2 out of 4, or 50%, would be your probability of getting a pink offspring. And what's the percentage or the probability of the offspring that would be white? And for this, it's actually going to be 0, because to be white, you have to be WW. And that means each parent has to carry that allele, and only this parent contributes that white allele. This parent doesn't have it. So there's no chance that that offspring would be white. So you just have to be careful with your genotypes and phenotypes. So instead of 2 phenotypes now, like red and white, we're actually going to have 3 phenotypes, red, white, or pink, because of that in-between phenotype. So what you want to do now is go practice your incomplete dominance problems, and then you are going to come back and watch the video for the next type of special genetics.